It's 6 p.m. on a Thursday here in Korea. Welcome to our newscast. I'm Daniel Che. Let's begin with the headlines. President Park Geunhye convenes a National Security Council meeting to reaffirm the nation's defense readiness. The focus was North Korea, with the president reminding the Security Council to act quickly and protect the people in the event of another nuke test by the regime. The 26 members of the Conference on Interaction and Confidence Building Measures in Asia, or CICA, unveiled their joint declaration. It reflects their strong stance against North Korea's nuclear ambitions and provocations. The South Korean government announced its plans to focus on long-term measures to rev up the economy, including greater support for investments in new industries and a push for restructuring the country's old growth engines. North Korea has fired off yet another projectile, but it crashed into the East Sea just seconds later. A senior South Korean military official said Thursday the object was fired at 6:40 a.m. Korea time from a mobile launch pad in Wonsan on North Korea's east coast. The projectile is presumed to be a mid-range Musudan ballistic missile, the same kind as the one the North fired on April 15th. The one also exploded in mid-air seconds after liftoff. The official said North Korea had dispatched 2 Musudan missiles for the launch earlier this month, and that the missile fired this time had been on reserve since then. He said the South Korean and U.S. military are conducting a detailed assessment on the matter. President Park Geunhye convened 2 meetings on North Korea today. She called for a full defense readiness against Pyongyang's provocations and said there will be no future for the North if it follows through on its threats. Song Ji-sun tells us more.
President Park made note of the rising threats from North Korea, which is reportedly preparing for an exercise targeting a replica of South Korea's presidential office. She also reiterated that Pyongyang is capable of conducting a 5th nuclear test at any time ahead of its ruling Workers' Party Congress for next Friday. At a cabinet meeting this morning, she said the North provocations pose a serious threat to regional security.
만약 북한이 추가 핵실험을 한다면 이것은 동북아의 안보 질서를 뒤흔드는 매우 심각한 도발 행위로 결코 용납될 수 없습니다.
President Park convened a National Security Council meeting in the afternoon to reaffirm the nation's defense readiness. It's the 3rd time she's chairing the meeting this year after the North's 4th nuclear test in January and the long-range missile launch a month later. She said the situation will be much more serious with a 5th nuclear test, as it will be an apparent challenge to the strongest sanctions ever placed on the regime by the international community.
만약 김정은 정권이 국제사회의 경고에도 불구하고 추가 핵실험을 감행할 경우에는 아마 미래는 없을 것입니다.
President Park called on the members of the National Security Council to act quickly and protect the South Korean people if Pyongyang conducts another nuclear test while she's in Iran next week. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News.
South Korea's ruling Saenuri Party and the government held a security meeting at the National Assembly with the Vice Ministers of Foreign Affairs, Defense and Unification amid the rising threats from North Korea. Park Ji-won shares with us what was discussed.
The senior South Korean government officials at the security meeting said they are closely monitoring the current situation and will respond with more sanctions and pressure if North Korea carries out any further provocations.
If North Korea conducts a 5th nuclear test, the South Korean government will push for a new UN resolution, strengthening the 16 sanctions on the regime, while closely cooperating with countries like the US, China, Japan, and Russia.
The government said it is monitoring North Korea's increasingly threatening rhetoric against the South Korean president and presidential office. It also vowed to keep up the pressure on Pyongyang until it achieves its goal of inducing positive change in the North.
Together with the international community, we'll keep pressuring North Korea unless the North shows its sincerity to willingly denuclearize.
The South Korean Defense Ministry vowed to respond to the North's threats by furthering the development of its indigenous Korean air missile defense system and the so-called kill chain missile defense system.
The defense ministry is following North Korea's preparations for any provocations, including another nuclear test, in order to defend the Republic of Korea. The ministry is constantly developing its own capabilities, as well as strengthening the alliance with the U.S.
Also, during the hour-long meeting, the ruling Saenuri Party emphasized the need to cooperate with the opposition parties and the president, given the current situation. The ruling party also proposed the creation of a joint consultative group on national security involving the three entities. Park Geunhye, Arirang News.
It seems the South Korean foreign minister's efforts to put North Korea in the spotlight at CICA was fruitful. Pyongyang took a big portion in the conference's joint declaration. Kwon So-hwa fills us in.
In a declaration adopted by all of its 26 members, Conference on Interaction and Confidence-Building Measures in Asia, or CICA, strongly condemned North Korea's nuclear test earlier this year and the following string of missile launches, and reaffirmed that its weapons program must be abandoned once and for all.
I hope that CICA will play a special role in blocking advances in North Korea's nuclear weapons capabilities and in stopping North Korea from conducting another nuclear test.
South Korean Foreign Minister Byungse called on his fellow foreign ministers to show leadership in thoroughly implementing UN Security Council's Resolution 2270. Chinese President Xi Jinping, in his opening remarks to the meeting, vowed to fully implement those sanctions. He touted China's efforts to deal with North Korea's provocations and asked other nations to push forward to bring about stability in Northeast Asia.
We hope all sides will exercise restraint, do not provoke tension between each other. Instead, we should work together to bring the peninsula nuclear issue back to the path of resolution with dialogue and negotiation as soon as possible.
Following a bilateral meeting on Wednesday with his Chinese counterpart Wang Yi, Minister Yoon met on Thursday with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov to discuss the North Korean issue.
During the talks, China and Russia expressed serious concern about North Korea's unpredictability and the development of its nuclear and missile capabilities.
Minister Yoon extended his conversations on the matter with many other counterparts, including the top diplomats from Turkey, Thailand, Ukraine, Kazakhstan, and Kyrgyzstan, reflecting South Korea's wish to have everyone's consensus on pressuring North Korea. Kwon So-hwa, Arirang News.
Korea is bracing for a wave of tough reforms that include fostering new industries and stripping away the excess capacity in old ones. Hwang Jae lists out parts of the long-term plan for us.
The Korean government is gearing up to overhaul its industrial sector, emphasizing longer-term measures over short-term solutions to rev up the economy. During an economy-related ministers' meeting on Thursday, the government pledged to drastically improve its support for investments in new industries.
We will grant up to 30% in tax credits, the highest level, to research and development investments in new industries, and a 10% tax credit for facilities investments, if the money is put toward commercializing new technology.
While the decision on exactly which sectors will be targeted will be made within the first half of this year, it's likely to involve the Internet of Things, new energy projects, and smart cars. The government is also set to offer greater tax credits in other service-related industries as well, like the cultural content sector, and plans to support high-risk new industries through a fund worth around 1 trillion won, or roughly $870 million. But some experts say these measures are more supplementary than fundamental.
The government has drawn up a financial and taxation support package, but the question is whether this is enough to draw out good players in the market. Will these aid programs encourage companies to jump in and give it their all? That's where we still see the unknowns.
The government's push to foster new industries will go in hand with restructuring the country's old growth engines, such as shipbuilding, shipping, and construction. These sectors have been posting eye-watering losses, dragging down the country's overall recovery momentum.
To better support the reform drive, the government also plans to expend an additional $5.7 billion of its budget in the first half of the year. Byungse, Arirang News.
Two Korean tech titans are all smiles. The first quarter earnings reports for both Samsung Electronics and LG Electronics show that both companies have posted better than expected results. Kim Min-ji zooms in on the uplifting digits.
Is Samsung Electronics back on a roll? According to the company's regulatory filing, its net profit came in at over $4.5 billion in the first quarter, up almost 14% from a year ago. Operating profit surged nearly 12% to over $5.8 billion, while sales rose about 6% to over $43 billion. The strong earnings come on the back of a better-than-expected performance of its mobile division, which saw its operating profit rise over 40% from the year before.
Strong sales of Samsung's Galaxy S7 led the gains, while its budget A series and J series gave the mobile arm a boost. With Apple's iPhone sales falling and no new releases set for the second quarter, the environment is favorable for Samsung.
Samsung's semiconductor arm, another cash cow for the company, posted $2.3 billion in operating profit, down 10% from a year ago. Still, analysts say it fared relatively well considering falling chip prices and a slump in demand. As for the second quarter, analysts expect Samsung to stay on the recovery track. While they predict the mobile arm will maintain its performance or see a slight decline due to marketing costs, they say the prospects are rosy for the consumer electronics and display business due to seasonal factors and demand for TVs ahead of the Summer Olympics. Samsung's local rival LG Electronics also turned in a better-than-expected report card. The company's net profit came to over $170 million in the first quarter, up almost five-fold from a year ago. Operating profit jumped over 65% to more than $440 million, while sales fell 4.5% to $11.7 billion. The earnings surprise was attributed to the company's home appliance and entertainment divisions. Sales of premium goods, including washing machines and refrigerators, edged up, while LG was also able to benefit from gains from a drop in panel prices. The mobile arm, however, acted as a drag on the company's earnings for a third straight quarter, as sales of its new G5 smartphone won't be reflected until the next quarter. Analysts expect the TV and home appliance sectors to lead growth in the second quarter. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Over in the United States, Republican presidential frontrunner Donald Trump turns heads again, this time with his foreign policy. It comes with some unwelcome changes for South Korea, as he may even pull out American forces out of most countries if elected. Shin Se-min looks into Trump's ill-advised America First policy.
In what appears to be the first in a round of speeches aimed at demonstrating the Republican presidential candidate's policy chops, Donald Trump gave a foreign policy address in Washington on Wednesday. Calling for an America First foreign policy, the Republican frontrunner pressed the need to put the interests of the American people and U.S. security above all else. Trump said the current administration has been humiliated over a number of issues, including its foreign policy, stressing that President Obama has allowed China to continue its economic assault on American jobs and wealth by refusing to enforce trade deals and put leverage on China, which is necessary to rein in Pyongyang. Trump said the U.S. should make use of Beijing's influence over North Korea. The issue of cost-sharing with U.S. allies ranked second on Trump's 5 main weaknesses with U.S. foreign policy. Although he made no remarks about South Korea in particular, he suggested that if elected, he would pull U.S. troops out of the country if Seoul refused to pay more for their upkeep. Responding to such remarks, South Korea's foreign ministry spokesperson Cho Jun-hyuk said that Seoul has been contributing considerably in regards to its share of maintaining U.S. military presence in the country, a contribution that has been acknowledged by the current U.S. administration and other ally countries. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Korea's international residents have the chance to enjoy a slice of Korean culture, courtesy of the Korean Culture and Information Service and Arirang TV. Lee Ji-won introduces to us the program that allows guests to see a different side of Korea.
Men dressed in hanbok walk onto the stage to traditional Korean music, mesmerizing the audience with the elegance of their clothes. Designed by one of Korea's best hanbok designers, Park Geunhye, these traditional Korean costumes are what sunbis or Korean scholars used to wear. The fashion show is followed by a powerful traditional dance, 한량무, that satirically portrays noble men wasting away their lives with women and alcohol. Another performance was traditional storytelling known as pansori, where the vocalist narrates the story to a drum beat.
Everything was amazingly attractive, amazingly interesting for me. As for new ambassador here, I'm very fresh, and I enjoyed a lot.
This is all part of Hello Mr. K, a series of traditional and contemporary music concerts for foreign residents in the country. And for Wednesday's concert, foreign journalists and ambassadors to Korea were invited.
We offer customized programs depending on the audience. Our guests for this concert are journalists and ambassadors, so we provide them with elegant and traditional culture. We offer cultural contents like K-pop for our younger audiences who came to Korea to study the language.
The program is designed to not only help foreign residents in Korea gain a greater understanding of traditional culture, it is also the government's first step toward organizing events like these in other countries around the world. 이지원, Arirang News.
And that brings us to the end of this hour's newscast. As always, thank you for watching.